I've set myself the formidable task of telling my great-grandchildren all about stuff I don't fully understand myself, in the hope that it might be of value to them umpteen years hence. In spite of my shortcomings and the complexity of the issue, the voice within says, have a go. So here goes. Hello, my darlings, Thomas, Lucy, Harvey, Teddy and Rory. You are all much loved. Your grandma took this photo on the 4th of October 2021. That was the very first time that I saw you all together. Now, it's come very clear to me that in many ways your childhood will be very different to mine way back in the 1930s. That's more than 90 years ago. It was during the Great Depression, when lots of people were poor and many could not get a job. Very few families had a motor car. Lots of kids had no shoes and went to school barefooted. I had to wear hand-me-down clothes that my cousins had grown out of. Yes, this is me in my Sunday best. We all went to church on Sundays to worship God. Pleasing God was critical. We were in a bit of trouble if we didn't. I was told to be a good boy every day. God's love flowed to me mostly through my parents, but God would prick my conscience to help me work out right from wrong. It was a sort of an inner voice. I knew when I'd made a bad choice. But overall, I felt loved, I felt safe, I felt free to run wild and explore life. It's a bit different for you. Your generation doesn't seem to climb trees for fun, or spend hours watching a blacksmith make and fit horseshoes and lots of other things, or play chasey on a big wheat stack near the railway station, or trap rabbits for food. But then, we didn't have mobile phones or screens to watch, or chlorinated swimming pools. But despite the different experiences, the tasks of growing up are pretty much the same for all generations. Growing up means making sense of our surroundings, working out who we are, where we fit, what we're good at, what brings joy, what we believe, and much, much more. Even why on earth we're here. Later on, I want to talk about a really big difference, God stuff, between my then world and our now world. But one lovely thing hasn't changed. I could do it then, you can do it now, and I bet that your children will be good at it too. It's playing Let's Make Out. In the make-believe world, we can be who we want to be, and may zoom over haunted castles in a cardboard cart and helicopter that guzzles orange juice when it runs out of petrol, or anything else that takes your fancy. So let's play now. Let's explore a bit of the God story and make out that we're visiting people who lived a very, very long time ago. It's night time, and we see an old man looking up at the stars. He points upwards and whispers, "I belong to them. and so do you. We look up. We look up for a long time and somehow feel a kind of connection with the stars. I'd feel that same connection as a child by lying quietly on our back lawn and gaze at the stars. My dad told me it was God's love coming from heaven. What luck! We've gate-crashed a very historic meeting of tribal elders. We learned that for a very long time they had wondered whether the magical thing up in the stars actually made the place where they camp, and the rivers where they catch fish, and even sent storms when there was trouble. Nobody around the campfire had any new ideas again tonight, so the chief tribesman said, "We've talked long enough. It's all very complicated. Only a god could make something as grand as all this." They agreed, and in due course gave their god a name that fitted their creation story. They were not the only ones. Other tribes from around the world had wondered the same kind of thing and made up their own stories to explain it all. Here are some of the cultures with stories about a god that created everything. These groups created the god that they believed created them. These places in white have different stories without a god. For example, here's a good one. A Chinese story talks about things being hatched from an egg-shaped cloud. Imagine that. My mum and dad taught me about the Christian God. My God's story starts with 2 Hebrew creation stories in a book called the Bible. That God, that story, helped shape my growing up. Make-believe can feel quite real when we are young, but as we grow up, we tend to grow out of daydreaming and wonder where we fit and what we want to do in the real world, whatever we might mean by that. When I was a child in the 1930s, it was generally believed that in reality there were 2 worlds, the natural world and the supernatural world. You probably know that the word super things are better than ordinary things. So the supernatural world was presumed to be above the natural world. Religious people see the supernatural world as up there in the heavens. It's said to be God's domain. That's where God and angels live. Even people who don't believe in God might say, "I don't know what it is, but there's something spooky out there that's bigger than me." Now this is what believers say about the supernatural world. Its nature is divine. Its essence is truth. It houses all wisdom. Love is its dynamic, makes it tick, so to speak. Believers talk to God through worship and through prayer. Prayer that rises up to God in the hope of receiving a blessing down from God. God is the leader above in the supernatural world, and we are the followers below in the natural world. Now, while many people only make contact from time to time, the fact is that the relationship is always there. Let me try and explain how that works. Now, everyone is familiar with the natural world, the world that many people see as God's creation. It's our world, the world of things. Things we can see and touch and taste and make and recycle. The physical world of everything. Animals on farms, colouring in books, trees in the forest, and even stuff that's hoarded in our sheds that might just come in handy one day, etc., etc. During the period between my childhood and yours, scientists have pieced together evidence to show that the qualities attributed to the supernatural world are, and always have been, qualities of the natural world. They're all there. Wisdom, love, divinity, and truth. I was 82 when I first heard of the new evidence in these terms. Call it God if you like, but quantum consciousness will do. We have a choice. If we choose to call it God, nothing changes. The benefits of prayer and worship continue. Back then I knew quite a bit about God, but nothing about quantum consciousness. So I looked it up in a book called God is Not Dead, and another called The Self-Aware Universe. The very title astonished me. A self-aware universe. That's different. The impression I got from school was that the universe was like a complex whiz-bang machine that runs like a clock. It's not. There's more to it than that. The universe is just one big everything that knows everything. Yes, it is self-aware. It seems unbelievable, doesn't it, that a universe could even have a mind, let alone be consciously aware of everything, everywhere, all the time, non-stop. Yes, it knows what's what about the lot. Its awareness registers in universal mind. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? It's a bit like how your mum seems to know if you're fibbing when she wasn't even there when it happened. The source of the universal knowing is quantum consciousness. That's often shortened to Big C consciousness. Researcher Amit Goswami raptly nicknamed it the mind of God. I like that name. Consciousness has a divine quality, and it links to the God that sustained me for many years. But it has greater depth and is readily accessible. Let's start from scratch. Remember that universal mind is always conscious. My mind is only consciously aware when I'm wide awake. So are yours. They switch off when we zizz off to sleep. Universal mind is always awake. Remember that its awareness is sourced from Big C consciousness. You might know that television masts somehow send TV pictures to houses for miles and miles around. But a house only gets the picture if it's got an antenna and the telly is switched on? It works because the mast sends the picture encoded in a very complex field of electromagnetic energy. The antenna gets the energy, the telly somehow or other decodes the energy, and the remote button reveals the picture of your very first TV appearance. Radio broadcasts work in a similar way. Both kind of broadcasts only work in one direction. They send, we get. Now, you don't need me to tell you that mobile phones work two ways. But they don't just work like that. They actually work like this. Things don't work too well without an energy supply. Perhaps you've heard that my two twin grandsons, Naaman and Teo, can talk to each other two-way without speaking. It's called mental telepathy. The question is, what is the energy supply? Can you guess? It's better than the best TV mast, and it's even better than the communication satellites that whiz round the Earth at more than 30,000 kilometres above sea level. Yes, the power source is consciousness. Now, before we talk more about our relationship to consciousness, we need to know that it also talks to every other living thing. Consciousness tells animals how to be themselves. It tells birds when to migrate and when to return. It tells trees when to shed their leaves and when to blossom and bud for fruit. It interconnects, coordinates, and harmonizes the oneness of the cosmos. The patterns of nature are set. Nature does what it's told. Humans get told what's best for us, but we don't always hear. Let's have a closer look at why that might be so. Recall that universal mind energizes everything. Big C consciousness never stops transmitting to us. It knows everybody and what's best for each of us, but most of us don't listen. Many people don't yet know that the universe is self-aware. I know, but even when my antenna is switched on, my little c consciousness is tuned into the local program on the HAN channel. That's the Here and Now channel. Day-to-day activities and preoccupations can be all shapes, sizes and colours, up and down and topsy-turvy. In this state, we're a bit like a scrambled jigsaw puzzle. We have no clear picture of what it's all about. We lack meaningful connection with others. We don't know where we fit. Life's a jumble. Furthermore, we tend to overlook how our ego, that's our self-image, can tend to drown out the non-stop broadcast on channel Big C. This is how it works. Our ego uses our five senses to experience life. It notes the things we see, the things we hear, the things we touch, taste, or smell. Our ego is that part of us that shapes the way we see ourselves. We constantly draw conclusions from all of these random sensory inputs, and we like stuff or we don't. Our memories of such events shape our unique identity. Ego keeps us busy, mostly too busy to tune in to channel Big C. Universal mind doesn't get a look in. Ego shuffles the pieces to assert that I am a unique individual, as indeed all others are. It highlights my own unique shape, as indeed all others are. The colours and patterns on my unique shape reflect my unique experiences, as indeed all others have. I assume that my way of seeing the world is both right and best. And it seems that others make the same assumption. As a consequence, we find ourselves in competition with others, because somehow ego wants us to win, to outsmart, to outdo, to have more. At its worst, lusting for more leads to policies that exalt economic advantage over social well-being. An unbridled ego craves compulsive indulgences that never fully satisfy. A disciplined ego seeks to hear what Big C consciousness has to say. It needs to extend the input from the five senses in order to learn how to be, how to share, how to collaborate, how to become. This will surprise you. The becoming will express your latent divinity. You will learn how your shape fits with the shape of others. You will learn how your pattern and colours give meaning to enrich yourself and others. You will see the bigger picture. I guess you recognise Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Look closely. These are the same pieces that were piled up a bit earlier. These are the same pieces that stood apart before. The picture has emerged because the pieces are now in their right place. They're not there in competition. Their collaboration gives meaning. Wisdom is pooled. Intimacy brings joy. In a way, it shows us how to live. Well, not quite really, because the jigsaw analogy falls short in that our unique piece is locked in and has to stay put, or the picture suffers. So is there a way for each of us to still be unique, yet free to move about, and still contribute to the big picture? A big yes, if within the right context. Our uniqueness is a given. We are not bits of jigsaw. We are free to connect or disconnect with others at will. Certainly we can contribute to the whole, but beware, we can also detract from the whole. We have the freedom to choose just how we spend our lives. It's our choice. A choice to contribute to others enriches the whole. It's our choice. Excessively self-indulgent choices tend to detract from the whole. The context in which these choices are influenced is big C consciousness. Well, there are lots of words and pictures to think about. I hope that you've enjoyed the bit about my childhood and its difference from yours. Some bits about the consciousness stuff might be a bit puzzling. I hope that you can make up a game to play at being an enlightened jigsaw piece. Remember the jigsaw piece? The universe we live in yearns for everyone to know their own unique shape and qualities, and to choose to connect with others for benefit all round. I hope that in time you'll come to experiment with my layman's description of the benefits and methods of rich interaction with big C consciousness. That'll be detailed in part 2 that's yet to follow. Love to you all from my end of the bridge to yours, with every step that you take.